Welcome to Elizabeth's Stories. Today we follow Helen Montgomery, a widow who uncovers her daughter-in-law's plot to seize her secretly purchased home. Through betrayal, she reclaims her power, sets boundaries, and builds a new life. Subscribe and hit the bell for weekly videos uncovering mysteries and truths. Share your thoughts below. Let's start the stories. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked cedar as I sat in my study, the glow of my phone casting sharp shadows across the room. My morning ritual black coffee, a single biscuit. The quiet hum of solitude was shattered the moment the security app chimed. A notification blinked motion detected at Willow House 7:42 a.m. My heart stuttered not from fear, but from an instinct honed by years of listening to whispers others ignored. I tapped the screen, and there she was. Clara, my daughter-in-law, standing on the porch of my secret Victorian manor, her silhouette framed by the dawn's gray haze. Clara clutched a key, its silver glint catching the camera's lens like a traitor's wink. She glanced over her shoulder, her auburn hair catching the wind, then slid the key into the lock with the confidence of someone who belonged. But the lock didn't yield. Her brow furrowed, and she tried again, twisting harder, her movements betraying a flicker of panic. I leaned closer to the screen, my breath steady, my pulse a metronome of calm. 24 hours ago, I had changed every lock in the house and installed cameras that saw more than daylight could reveal. Expensive. Yes. Worth it. Undoubtedly. Clara stepped back, her lips moving in a silent curse. She pulled out her phone dial and began gesturing wildly, her free hand stabbing at the air as if accusing the door itself. I couldn't hear her words, but I didn't need to. I knew the story she was spinning, perhaps a tale of vandals or a mix-up with the property manager. But lies unravel in the face of truth, and I held the truth in my hands, recorded in crisp, undeniable footage. My name is Eleanor Voss, and at 64, I've learned that trust is a fragile relic easily shattered by those closest to you. I'm no stranger to loss. My husband Gideon left this world 6 months ago, his heart finally surrendering after years of battle. But I'm not the frail widow the world might expect. There's a fire in me kindled long ago by secrets I've kept even from myself, secrets that hum beneath my skin like a forgotten song. The Willow House, hidden on the outskirts of Ashwick, Pennsylvania, was meant to be my sanctuary, a legacy for my son Nathan and his family. I bought it in secret, not out of deceit, but to protect a dream I wasn't ready to share. Now, watching Clara's futile attempts to breach my haven, I realized that dream was under siege. The house itself seemed to watch her too. Its tall arched windows glinted like eyes, and the ivy curling up its walls shivered as if whispering warnings. I'd felt it the first time I stepped onto its creaking porch, a presence not malevolent, but ancient, as if the house held memories older than its Victorian bones. I'd dismissed it as grief playing tricks on my mind, but now watching Clara, I wondered if the house knew something I didn't. I set the phone down and sipped my coffee, its bitterness grounding me. Clara's presence wasn't a coincidence. That key, how had she gotten it? I hadn't given it to her, nor had I shared the existence of Willow House with anyone, not even Nathan. The property was purchased through a trust, its deed locked in a safe only I could access. Yet there she was, bold as brass, trying to claim what wasn't hers. My fingers traced the edge of a locket around my neck, a gift from Gideon, its faint warmth reminding me of the strength I'd buried after his death. I wasn't just a grieving widow. I was a woman who'd once unraveled mysteries others feared to touch. I rewound the footage, studying Clara's movements. Her coat was too pristine for the muddy path leading to the house, her boots unscuffed despite the gravel. She moved with purpose, not curiosity, as if she'd been there before. A chill crept up my spine, not from the autumn air seeping through the window, but from a realization Clara hadn't stumbled upon the house. She knew, but how and why now? The security app chimed again. Another camera, this one at the back entrance, caught Clara circling the house like a predator testing a cage. She tried the key in the rear door, her frustration mounting as it too refused her. The camera's night vision mode painted her in ghostly greens, her face a mask of determination tinged with something darker, greed perhaps, or desperation. She paused, staring directly into the lens, and for a moment I swore her eyes flickered not with light, but with something unnatural like embers in a dying fire. I blinked, and the illusion vanished. Just a trick of the screen, I told myself, but my hand tightened around the locket. I opened my laptop and pulled up the property records, double-checking the trust's details. Everything was in order, the deed in my name, the payments discreetly handled through a lawyer who asked no questions. The property manager, a curt woman named Lydia, had assured me that no one else had access. Yet Clara had a key. Someone had betrayed me, not just Clara, but someone within the tight circle I had trusted to keep my secret. The thought twisted like a knife, but I pushed it aside. Anger could wait. Clarity was what I needed now. I replayed the footage, zooming in on the key. It wasn't one of the originals I'd given to Lydia. Its shape was wrong, too ornate, with a faint engraving I couldn't quite make out. My mind raced. Had Clara somehow duplicated a key, or had she acquired it through other means I hadn't yet considered? The house's history flickered in my thoughts. The realtor had mentioned its previous owners, a reclusive family who'd left behind whispers of strange occurrences, lights flickering without cause, doors locking on their own. I'd laughed it off, chalking it up to small-town gossip. Now I wasn't so sure. I stood pacing the study, my shadow stretching across the hardwood floor. The locket hummed against my chest, warmer now, as if urging me to act. I'd always dismissed the stories Gideon told me about my family's past, tales of women in our lineage who wielded intuition like a blade, who sensed truths others couldn't. "You're one of them, Eleanor." He'd set his eyes alight with belief. I'd brushed it off as his poet's fancy, but now with Clara's intrusion burning in my mind, I wondered if he'd been right. I returned to the phone, watching Clara retreat to her car, her phone pressed to her ear. She gestured wildly, her voice inaudible, but her intent clear. She was rallying Nathan, spinning a story to cover her tracks. I knew her type, polished smiles, hiding sharp edges, words crafted to manipulate. She'd been kind after Gideon's death, bringing casseroles and sympathy, but her eyes always lingered too long on my jewelry, my bank statements, the things she thought defined me. I'd ignored the signs, clinging to the hope that family meant loyalty. Now I saw the truth. Family could be the sharpest blade of all. I opened a drawer and pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with notes from my visits to Willow House. Sketches of its stained-glass windows, lists of renovations, dreams of family dinners under its chandelier. But there was something else in those pages. Odd details I'd jotted down without thinking, a cold spot in the hallway, a faint hum in the attic, a keyhole in the basement door that no key seemed to fit. I flipped to a recent entry, my handwriting shaky. "The house feels alive, like it's waiting for something." I'd dismissed it as grief, but now it felt like a warning. The phone chimed again. This time it was a text from Nathan. "Mom, can we talk? Clara says there's an issue with a house you're looking at. Call me." My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't respond. Not yet. Nathan's voice echoed in my mind, earnest, warm, but always quick to follow Clara's lead. I loved my son, but love didn't blind me to his weaknesses. If Clara was plotting, was he complicit or just a pawn? The question gnawed at me, but I pushed it down. I needed answers, not assumptions. I called Lydia, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Lydia, has anyone accessed the Willow House records or requested a key? Her pause was too long, her tone too careful. No, Mrs. Voss. You're the only one with access. I pressed further, describing the key Clara held. Another pause, then a stammer. That doesn't sound like our keys. I'll check the logs. Her unease confirmed my suspicions. Someone had slipped through her defenses. As I hung up, the locket burned against my skin, a pulse of heat that felt like a call to action. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I saw the house in my mind, not as it was now, but as it might have been decades ago, its halls filled with shadows that moved without light. A woman's voice, faint and melodic, whispered a single word: protect. I opened my eyes, my resolve hardening. Clara thought she could claim what was mine, but she didn't know the strength I carried, or the secrets the house might hold. I grabbed my coat and keys, the locket still warm against my chest. The Willow House was calling, and I would answer, not as a victim, but as a woman who'd learned to wield her own power. Clara's intrusion was just the beginning, a crack in the facade of family. I would uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the shadows, hers mine, and those that lingered in the walls of my sanctuary. The silence in my Ashwick home was heavier than the oak beams holding up its roof. Each morning, I woke to the absence of Gideon's laughter, his off-key humming as he brewed coffee, the warmth of his hand brushing mine at the breakfast table. 6 months had passed since his heart gave out, leaving me to navigate a world that felt like a half-finished painting, vivid in places, but empty where it mattered most. At 64, I was supposed to be settling into the quiet comfort of retirement surrounded by family. Instead, I was learning how loneliness could carve hollows deeper than any knife. I stood at the kitchen counter staring at the single mug I had set out, a habit I couldn't break. The locket around my neck pulsed faintly. Its warmth a reminder of Gideon's belief in me, a belief I wasn't sure I deserved. He'd always said I had a gift, a way of seeing truths others missed, inherited from the women in my family. You're a Voss, Eleanor. He'd whisper, his eyes alight with secrets I never dared to explore. I'd laughed it off, content to be his practical wife, the one who balanced the checkbook while he dreamed of mysteries. Now, with him gone, those dreams felt like warnings I'd ignored. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. Nathan's name lit up the screen, and my heart lifted, a reflex of hope. My son. My anchor. The boy who'd once clung to my skirts during thunderstorms. Mom, you okay? His voice was warm, but there was an edge to it. A hurry that hadn't been there before Clara entered Hidahif. Just checking in. Clara's making lasagna tonight. Want to come over? I hesitated, my fingers tracing the locket's etched surface. That sounds lovely, I said, though the invitation felt rehearsed like a line from a script. Nathan had been calling more often since Gideon's death, his visits punctuated by Clara's presence, her polished smiles, her casseroles that tasted of obligation rather than care. At first, I'd welcomed their attention, grateful for any tether to the world I'd known. But gratitude has a way of blinding you to the strings attached. I'll be there, I said, and hung up, my gaze drifting to the window. The autumn leaves swirled outside, their crimson edges catching the light like embers. The locket warmed again, a soft pulse that felt like a nudge. I shook it off, blaming my imagination, but the unease lingered, a shadow moving just beyond my sight. That evening, I drove to Nathan and Clara's modest bungalow on the edge of Ashwick. The town was small, its streets lined with maple trees and secrets whispered behind picket fences. Their home was tidy, the kind of place that screamed effort, freshly painted shutters, a garden that bloomed with unnatural precision. Clara greeted me at the door, her auburn hair swept into a perfect bun, her smile as flawless as a porcelain mask. "Eleanor, so good to see you," she said, her voice sweet but sharp, like honey laced with glass. Nathan hugged me, his embrace warm but brief. "Missed you, Mom." His eyes, so like Gideon's, held a flicker of something guilt, perhaps, or distraction. We sat at their dining table, the lasagna steaming between us, and Clara launched into small talk about her job at the local gallery, her voice a practiced melody. But her eyes kept darting to me, lingering on the locket, the gold band on my finger, the weight of my solitude. I felt like a ledger. She was tallying each glance, adding a number to her calculations. "Mom, you've been so quiet lately," Nathan said, cutting through Clara's chatter. "This house, it's too big for you now. Don't you think Dad wouldn't want you rattling around alone?" His tone was gentle, but there was a script behind it, one I suspected Clara had written. She nodded, her eyes bright with something too eager to be concerned. "It's not good for you, Eleanor," she added, leaning forward. "All that space, those memories. You deserve something fresh, something easier. We could help you sort through the insurance money, make smart choices." Her words were kind on the surface, but they carried a weight, a suggestion that my future wasn't mine to shape. I sipped my wine, the locket warm against my chest. "I'm managing," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "The house is home. It's where Gideon and I built our life." Clara's smile tightened a crack in her facade, and I caught a flicker of frustration in her eyes. Nathan shifted in his seat, his fork scraping the plate. "We just want what's best for you," he said, but his words felt rehearsed, as if he were reciting lines to keep the peace. I wanted to believe him, to cling to the boy who'd once trusted me to chase away his nightmares. But the locket pulsed, and a memory surfaced. Gideon's voice, low and urgent. "Trust your instincts, Eleanor. They've never failed you." I changed the subject, asking about their daughter, my granddaughter, Lila. Clara's face softened, but only briefly, before she steered the conversation back to money. "The insurance payout must be a relief," she said, her tone casual but probing. "You could do so much with it, maybe invest in something for the family." Her eyes gleamed not with warmth, but with the hunger of a child eyeing a forbidden sweet. I smiled politely, my fingers brushing the locket. "I'm still deciding," I said, and the lie felt like armor. I hadn't told them about the Willow House, the Victorian manor I'd purchased in secret. It was my sanctuary, my legacy, a place where I imagined Lila, running through halls filled with laughter, where Nathan might carve a turkey at Thanksgiving, where I could rebuild what grief had stolen. But Clara's words, her eager gaze, stirred a warning deep within me. Not every smile was a shield. Some were a snare. Driving home, the locket grew warmer, its heat a steady pulse against my skin. The road to Ashwick wound through fog-draped hills, and for a moment I swore I saw a figure in the mist. A woman, her silhouette faint but familiar, her eyes locked on mine. I blinked, and she was gone, leaving only the hum of the locket and the echo of Gideon's words, "You're a Voss." I shook my head, blaming the late hour, but the unease clung to me like damp air. Back in my study, I opened the leather-bound journal where I'd recorded my plans for the Willow House. Its pages were filled with sketches. Its gabled roof, its ivy-covered walls, the stained glass window in the foyer that cast rainbows across the floor. But there were other notes, ones I had written in moments of quiet unease. The air in the attic hums like a song I can't quite hear. The basement door creaks open at night, though no one's there. I'd dismissed them as fancies, the ramblings of a grieving mind. But after Clara's probing, they felt like clues. I traced a sketch of the house's front door, its keyhole drawn with care. The key Clara held this morning, it wasn't one of mine. Its ornate design, the faint engraving, hinted at something older, something tied to the house's past. The realtor had warned me about the manor's history whispers of a family who'd vanished decades ago, leaving behind rumors of locked rooms and hidden treasures. I'd laughed, thinking it was just Ashwick's love for tall tales. Now I wondered if Clara had stumbled onto something I hadn't. I closed the journal and stood drawn to the window. The night was still, but the locket thrummed its warmth, spreading through me like a spark. I remembered a story Gideon told me about my great-grandmother, a woman who'd lived in Ashwick a century ago. She'd been called a seer, someone who could sense truths in the shadows, who carried a locket like mine. It's more than jewelry, Gideon had set his voice low. It's a key to who you are. I'd scoffed, but now, with Clara's betrayal looming, I felt a stirring, as if the locket was waking something within me. The next morning, I drove to the Willow House, unable to resist its call. The manor stood at the end of a winding lane, its spires piercing the morning mist. As I approached, the ivy seemed to shift, its leaves rustling without wind. I stepped onto the porch, my hand brushing the door's brass knocker, and the locket flared, hot a warning or an invitation. I unlocked the door, my key the one that belonged, and stepped inside. The foyer smelled of polished wood and secrets, the stained glass window casting fractured light across the floor. I moved through the house, checking each room, each lock, ensuring Clara hadn't left her mark. The renovations were nearly complete. Gleaming countertops, sanded floors, a chandelier that sparkled like a constellation. I'd poured Gideon's insurance money into this place, not just to secure my future, but to build one for Nathan, Clara, and Lila. Yet Clara's actions had tainted that dream, turning my gift into a battlefield. In the attic, I paused. The air was thick, the hum I'd noted in my journal louder now like a distant melody. I followed it to a corner where an old mirror stood, its frame carved with symbols I didn't recognize. My reflection stared back, but for a moment it wasn't me. A woman with my face, but older, her eyes glowing with a fire I hadn't yet claimed. The locket burned, and I stumbled back, my heart racing. "Just grief," I whispered, but the words felt hollow. Downstairs, I checked the basement door, the one that creaked open at night. Its keyhole was empty, but as I touched it, the locket pulsed again, and a memory surfaced, not mine, but vivid, a woman in a long dress slipping a key into that very lock, her hands trembling. I shook my head, the vision fading, but the unease remained. The house was more than brick and mortar. It was watching, waiting, and somehow it was tied to me. I returned to the foyer, my phone buzzing with another text from Nathan. "Mom Clara's worried about you. Can we meet at the house you're looking at? She says it's perfect for us." My blood ran cold. He was talking about the Willow House, the one I owned, the one Clara had tried to breach. They weren't just guessing. They knew. And they were moving faster than I had expected. I sat on the staircase, the locket warm against my skin, and opened my journal. I wrote, "Clara has a key. The house knows her, but it knows me too." The words felt like a vow, a line drawn in the sand. I wasn't the grieving widow they thought I was. I was Eleanor Voss, and whatever secrets the Willow House held, I would uncover them before Clara could claim what wasn't hers. The locket pulsed, and for the first time in months, I felt alive, not with fear, but with purpose. The Willow House stood like a sentinel at the edge of Ashwick, its spires piercing the morning mist, its ivy-clad walls whispering secrets only the wind could hear. I'd first seen it 3 months ago on a rainy afternoon when grief had driven me to wander beyond the familiar streets of town. The realtor's sign had been half hidden by overgrown brambles, but the house itself called to me, its arched windows glinting like eyes that knew my name. It was a Victorian manor grand, yet weathered with 6 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a history that clung to its bones like moss. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it a pulse, not unlike the locket around my neck, as if the house were alive, waiting for me to claim it. I stood in its foyer, now my journal open on the oak table I'd had delivered last week. The stained glass window above cast fractured rainbows across the floor, painting my hands in hues of crimson and gold. I'd bought the house in secret, using Gideon's insurance money not to hoard it for myself, but to build something lasting, a legacy for Nathan, Clara, and their daughter, Lila. In my mind's eye, I saw Lila racing through these halls, her laughter echoing off the polished wood. I pictured Nathan carving a roast at a long dining table, Clara passing plates, the air warm with family. For a woman who'd lost so much, the Willow House was a way to give something back, to stitch together the frayed threads of our lives. But I hadn't told them, not yet. The locket warm against my chest seemed to hum with approval, as if it understood why I kept this secret. Clara's probing questions at dinner, her 2 bright eyes when she mentioned the insurance money, had sharpened a caution I hadn't known I possessed. Gideon used to say I had a gift for seeing truths others missed, a trait passed down through the Voss women. I'd dismissed it as his romantic fancy. But now, with Clara's intrusion at the house yesterday, I felt that gift stirring like an ember flaring to life. I flipped through my journal, its pages, a map of my intentions, sketches of the house's gabled roof, notes on renovations, new countertops, sanded floors, a garden ready for summer blooms. But there were other entries, ones I hadn't meant to write. The chandelier sways without wind. The basement door creaks at midnight as if someone's trying to get in or out. I'd chalked them up to exhaustion, but the locket's warmth told me otherwise. The house was more than a gift. It was a puzzle, and I was only beginning to see its pieces. I'd purchased the Willow House through a trust, its deed locked in my name alone. The process had been discreet, handled by a lawyer who asked no questions, and a property manager, Lydia, who promised confidentiality. For 6 weeks, workers had come and gone, painting walls, replacing fixtures, breathing life into rooms that had stood empty too long. I played the part of the grieving widow, attending book club, sipping tea with neighbors, all while orchestrating a surprise that would bring my family together. I imagined the moment I'd hand Nathan the keys, his shock melting into joy, Clara's polished smile softening into gratitude. I wanted them to see not just a house, but proof that I still believed in us, despite the shadows grief had cast. Yet doubt gnawed at me. Clara's key, the one that didn't belong, haunted my thoughts. Its ornate design, the faint engraving I couldn't decipher, suggested it wasn't a mistake. Someone had given it to her, or she'd found it through means I couldn't yet fathom. The realtor had mentioned the house's past, a family who'd vanished in the 1920s, leaving behind rumors of hidden rooms and locked doors that no key could open. I'd laughed, thinking it was Ashwick's penchant for ghost stories. Now I wondered if Clara had stumbled onto something I'd overlooked, something the house itself guarded. I walked through the manor, my footsteps echoing in the quiet. The living room gleamed, its fireplace restored to its original grandeur, its mantel carved with vines that seemed to shift in the corner of my eye. I paused, the locket pulsing hot. For a moment, I swore the carvings moved, curling like living tendrils. I blinked, and they were still just wood and shadow. Grief, I told myself, but the locket's heat suggested otherwise. In the kitchen, I ran my fingers along the granite countertops I'd chosen, imagining Clara's delight at the space until I remembered her eyes at dinner, calculating, not admiring. I'd designed this house for them, but her intrusion yesterday made me question everything. Had she known about the house all along? Had Nathan? The thought twisted like a blade, but I pushed it down. I needed proof, not paranoia. Upstairs, I entered the master suite, its tall windows overlooking the garden. I'd decorated it for myself a sanctuary of soft blues and creams, a place to rebuild after Gideon's death. But I'd also planned rooms for Nathan and Clara, for Lila, each space crafted with care. The nursery had a mural of stars, the guest room a fireplace for winter nights. Every choice was a thread in the tapestry of family I wanted to weave. Yet Clara's key, her bold attempt to enter, felt like a tear in that fabric. I sat on the edge of the master bed, the locket warm against my skin. I opened it, revealing a tiny portrait of Gideon, his eyes crinkling with the smile I'd loved. "You'd know what to do," I whispered, but the house answered instead, a faint creak from the hallway, as if someone had stepped on a loose board. I froze, my pulse quickening. The workers had left hours ago, and I was alone. Or so I thought. I stood the locket's heat guiding me like a compass. The hallway was empty, but the air felt heavy, charged with a presence I couldn't name. At the end of the corridor, a door to the attic stood ajar, though I'd locked it yesterday. I approached, my hand trembling as I pushed it open. The stairs creaked under my weight, each step pulling me deeper into the house's secrets. The attic was dim, its air thick with dust, and something else, a hum, like the one I'd noted in my journal, but louder now, a melody that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I followed the sound to the mirror I'd seen before, its carved frame, glinting in the faint light. My reflection stared back, but it wasn't just me. Behind my image, a woman flickered into view, her face like mine, but older, her eyes glowing with a fire that felt both foreign and familiar. The locket burned, and her lips moved, though no sound came. "Protect." She seemed to say the word, echoing in my mind. I stumbled back, my breath catching. The vision faded, but the hum lingered, a reminder that the house was more than it seemed. I descended to the foyer, my heart racing, but my resolve hardening. The locket's warmth was no longer a mystery. It was a call, a connection to something deeper, perhaps to the Voss women Gideon had spoken of. I opened my journal and wrote, "The house knows me. It's waiting for me to know it." The words felt like a vow, a promise to unravel the manor's secrets before Clara could claim them. That afternoon, I met Lydia at a cafe in town to discuss the house. Her eyes darted nervously, her fingers twisting a napkin. "No one else has access." "Mrs. Voss," she insisted, but her voice wavered. I pressed her about the key, describing its ornate design. Her face paled. "That doesn't sound like ours. There was a break-in at the office last month, but nothing was taken, or so we thought." Her words confirmed my fears. Clara's key wasn't a mistake. It was a theft, a deliberate act. I drove back to the Willow House, the locket pulsing with each mile. The manor loomed in the dusk, its windows dark but watchful. I stepped inside, the air humming with that same melody, now joined by a faint whisper, "Eleanor." I froze, my hand on the banister. It wasn't my imagination. The house was speaking, or something within it was. I climbed to the attic again, drawn to the mirror. This time, the woman's image was clearer, her dress old-fashioned, her eyes fierce. She held a key identical to Clara's, its engraving glowing faintly. "Find it," she whispered, and the locket burned hot. I searched the attic, my hands trembling as I moved boxes, traced walls, looking for anything out of place. In a corner beneath a loose floorboard, I found a small box, its wood carved with the same symbols as the mirror. Inside was a letter yellowed with age addressed to the keeper of the willow. The words were cryptic. "The key unlocks more than doors." Guard it or lose all. My breath caught. The key Clara held, was it this key? Had she found another, or had someone given it to her? I tucked the letter into my journal, my mind racing. The house wasn't just a home. It was a vault holding secrets I hadn't yet grasped. Clara's intrusion wasn't just about money. It was about power, something the house itself seemed to recognize. I stood in the foyer. The locket warmed the air alive with whispers. I'd bought the Willow House to give my family a future, but now I saw it was also a test of my strength, my instincts, my legacy. I locked the door behind me, the key heavy in my hand. Clara thought she could claim what was mine, but she didn't know the fire I carried or the secrets the house held, and I was Eleanor Voss, and I would protect this place not just for my family, but for myself. The locket pulsed, and the house seemed to hum in agreement, its shadows shifting as if ready to reveal their truths. The Willow House stood silent in the morning fog, its spires shrouded like secrets waiting to be uncovered. I sat in my car, parked a block away, my phone glowing with the security app's feed. Clara's intrusion 3 days ago had set my nerves alight, and the letter I had found in the attic, the cryptic warning about a key that unlocked more than doors, had turned my caution into a blade. The locket around my neck pulsed its warmth, a steady rhythm, urging me to trust the instincts I'd long ignored. I was Eleanor Voss, not the grieving widow Clara and Nathan thought me to be, and I was done being prey. The security footage from yesterday replayed on my phone, Clara, her auburn hair catching the dawn, trying that strange ornate key in the front door. Then the back, her frustration growing with each failed attempt. The cameras I'd installed after her first breach were my eyes, their lenses capturing what her polished smile hid. She'd called Nathan, gesturing wildly, her lips forming words I couldn't hear, but could guess lies about vandals, squatters, anything to mask her intent. But the house knew better. Its walls had hummed when she approached, a low warning note I felt in my bones, as if it were guarding itself and me. I'd spent the night poring over the letter from the attic, its words etched in my mind. The key unlocks more than doors. Guard it or lose all. The box it came in, carved with symbols matching the mirror's frame, sat on my kitchen table, a puzzle I hadn't yet solved. The key Clara held wasn't mine, nor was it one of the property managers. Its engravings, faint but intricate, suggested a purpose beyond opening locks, a purpose tied to the Willow House's shadowed past. I'd dismissed Ashwick's ghost stories about the house's vanished owners, but now with Clara's actions and the locket's heat guiding me, I wondered if those stories held truths I needed to uncover. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Nathan. Mom Clara found a house on Willow Lane. It's perfect for us, 6 bedrooms, big kitchen. Can we talk about it? My breath caught. Willow Lane. The very street where my house stood, the one I'd bought in secret to surprise them. They hadn't stumbled upon it by chance. They knew. But how? And why were they pretending it was a new discovery? The locket warmed, a spark of clarity cutting through the fog. This wasn't coincidence. It was calculation. I typed a reply, my fingers steady despite the storm in my chest. Sounds interesting. Let's meet there today. Noon. I hit send, my plan forming like a map drawn in starlight. If Clara wanted to play games, I'd set the board. I called Lydia, the property manager, her voice tight with the unease she couldn't hide. Mrs. Voss, everything's secure. No one's accessed the house since you changed the locks. I pressed her about the break-in. She'd mentioned the one where nothing was supposedly taken. A file was misplaced. She admitted her words, halting. Old records about the Willow House. I thought it was just a clerical error. My grip tightened on the phone. A clerical error didn't give Clara a key. I drove to the Willow House, the locket pulsing with each mile. The manor loomed through the mist, its windows glinting like eyes that saw too much. I stepped inside, the air heavy with that familiar hum, now joined by a faint whisper. Eleanor. I froze my hand on the banister. The house was speaking again, or something within it was. I climbed to the attic, drawn to the mirror, where I'd seen the woman who looked like me but wasn't. Her image flickered, her eyes fierce, holding the same ornate key Clara had. "Find her truth," she whispered, and the locket burned, urging me forward. I returned to the foyer, my journal open on the oak table. I sketched the key from memory, its engravings swirling like runes. The letter's warning echoed guard it or lose all. I didn't know what the key unlocked, but I knew Clara's intentions weren't pure. She wasn't just after the house. She was after something deeper, something the house itself seemed to protect. At noon, Nathan and Clara arrived, their car crunching gravel in the driveway. I watched from the porch, the locket warm against my skin, my expression calm, but my senses sharp. Nathan hugged me, his smile strained while Clara's eyes swept the house, gleaming with a hunger she didn't bother to hide. "Mom, this place is incredible," Nathan said, his voice too eager, like a salesman pitching a deal. Clara found it online. "It's out of our price range, but—" He trailed off, glancing at Clara. She stepped forward, her smile a polished blade. "Eleanor, we know how much Gideon's insurance money means to you. If you could help with a down payment, maybe as an early inheritance, it could be ours. For Lila, for all of us." Her words were smooth, but her eyes betrayed her, darting to the windows, the door, as if measuring her claim. I smiled, my voice steady. "Let's take a look inside." I led them through the foyer, the stained glass window casting rainbows across their faces. Clara moved like she owned the place, her fingers trailing the banister, her voice bright as she described where she'd plant roses, where Lila's playroom would be. She paused in the kitchen, her hand on the granite countertop I'd chosen, and said, "This is perfect for our dinner parties. Our—" The word landed like a stone. She led us upstairs straight to the master suite I had designed for myself and declared, "This is ideal for Nathan and me. Eleanor. There's a cozy room by the guest bath for you. It's adequate." Adequate. My sanctuary reduced to a footnote in her vision. Nathan nodded, his enthusiasm blind to the color draining from my face. I saw it clearly now. They weren't dreaming of a shared future. They were claiming one with me relegated to a corner of my own house. The locket burned, and a whisper echoed in my mind. "See her." I looked at Clara, and for a moment her shadow seemed to flicker too long, too sharp, as if the house itself were exposing her. I kept my smile in pause, my voice light. "It's a beautiful house, but it's a big commitment. Let me think it over." Clara's eyes narrowed, a crack in her facade, but she nodded, her smile tight. Nathan clapped my shoulder. "Thanks, Mom. Dad would have wanted this for us." His words stung not because they were true, but because they were rehearsed, a line Clara had fed him. That evening, alone in my Ashwick home, I opened my journal, the letter from the attic tucked between its pages. I wrote, "They know about the house. Clara's not guessing, she's planning." The locket pulsed, and I felt the house's hum even miles away, as if it were calling me back. I called Lydia again, my voice firm. "Relist the Willow House. Same price, same terms. I want to see who bites." Her confusion crackled through the phone. "Oh, Mrs. Voss, you own it. Why pretend to sell?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "To see how far they'll go. Within hours, Nathan called, his voice electric with urgency. "Mom, you won't believe this. The Willow House is back on the market. Another family's making an offer, cash full price. We need to act fast." My heart sank, not from surprise, but from the ease of his lie. The locket burned, and I played along, my voice calm. "That's sudden. How much are we talking?" Nathan hesitated, then said, 350,000. If you can wire the money, Clara's got a rapport with the realtor. She'll handle everything." The manipulation was smooth, almost artful. Clara's voice murmured in the background, feeding him lines. I pictured her, that key in her hand, her eyes gleaming with a hunger the house itself seemed to reject. "I'll speak to the realtor myself," I said, my tone even. Silence stretched across the line. Then Nathan cleared his throat. "Clara's already got it under control, Mom. She's built trust with them." Trust, the word was a mockery, and the locket's heat felt like a warning flare. I hung up, my mind racing. They weren't just after the house. They were after control, my money, my future. The letter's words echoed, "Lose all." I opened my laptop, pulling up the security footage again. Clara's key glinted in the frame. Its engravings clearer now, a pattern of vines like those on the attic mirror. I froze, a memory surfacing, the woman in the mirror, holding that same key, her eyes urging me to protect something. But what I drove to the Willow House, the night cloaking me in shadow. The manor's windows glowed faintly, though no lights were on. I stepped inside, the hum louder now, a melody that seemed to weave through the walls. The locket burned, guiding me to the basement door, the one that creaked open at night. Its keyhole was empty, but as I touched it, a vision flashed, the woman from the mirror, slipping the ornate key into the lock. A door opening to a room bathed in light. I blinked, the vision gone, but the locket's heat urged me to search. I scoured the basement, my flashlight cutting through the dark. In a corner behind a stack of crates, I found a hidden panel, its edges carved with the same vine-like symbols. I pressed it, and it clicked open, revealing a small compartment. Inside was a journal, its leather cover worn but intact, its pages filled with elegant script. The first line read, "To the keeper of the willow, the house chooses its guardian." My breath caught. The entries detailed a legacy, a line of women, all Vosses, who'd protected the house's secrets, a power tied to the key Clara held. The journal mentioned a vault hidden somewhere in the house, accessible only by the key. It held something precious, not gold or jewels, but a force, a light that bound the house to its guardian. I flipped to the last page, my heart pounding. Beware those who seek the key for themselves. They will take everything. Clara's face flashed in my mind. Her hunger, her lies. She wasn't just after the house. She was after its power, whatever it was. I tucked the journal under my arm, the locket pulsing like a heartbeat. The house hummed, its shadows shifting as if nodding in agreement. I climbed to the foyer, my resolve hardening. Clara thought she could manipulate me, but she didn't know the house had chosen me. I called Lydia, my voice steady. "Keep the listing active. Tell the realtor to expect an offer from Nathan and Clara." I hung up, a plan forming. I'd let them think they were winning. Let them reveal their hand. The next morning, Nathan called again, his voice urgent. "Mom." The other offer fell through. "The house is ours if we move fast. Can you wire the money today?" I stared at the phone, the locket warm against my chest. "I'll need to see the paperwork," I said, my tone calm but firm. Silence. Then, Clara's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. Nathan stammered, "Clara's handling it." "Mom, she's got everything ready." I smiled, though it was cold. "Then Clara can show me." I drove to the Willow house, the journal in my bag, the locket guiding me. Clara and Nathan were waiting on the porch, her smile tight, his eyes avoiding mine. She held a folder, her fingers tapping nervously. Eleanor. Here's the offer, she said, handing it over. I scanned it, my heart sinking further. The realtor's name was unfamiliar. The terms rushed, the price inflated. It was a sham, a forgery meant to pressure me. The locket burned, and the house hummed a low, angry note. Interesting, I said, my voice steady. But I own this house, Clara. Her face froze, her eyes wide with shock, then narrowing with defiance. Nathan blinked, confusion clouding his features. Mom, what are you talking about? I held up the deed pulled from my bag, my name clear in black ink. I bought it months ago, for us. But you already knew that, didn't you? Clara's mask slipped, her lips parting in a silent gasp. The locket flared, and for a moment her shadow flickered again, too long, too sharp, as if the house were marking her. Nathan stammered. Mom, we didn't, Clara said. She cut him off, her voice sharp. She's twisting this, Nathan. She bought it to control us, to dangle it over our heads. Her words were venom, but they crumbled against the truth. I stepped closer, the locket's heat fueling my words. You had a key, Clara. One you shouldn't have. You lied, schemed, and tried to steal what's mine. Why? Her eyes darted to the house, then back to me, a flicker of fear breaking through her facade. The house hummed louder, its shadows pooling at her feet. She stepped back, her voice trembling. I just wanted a home for us, for Lila. The lie was thin, and the locket burned, urging me to see deeper. I held up the journal, its pages open to the warning. This house holds more than walls, Clara. And you're not here for family. You're here for its secrets. Her face paled, and for the first time I saw her not as my daughter-in-law, but as a thief chasing a power she didn't understand. Nathan's voice broke the silence, small and shaken. Mom, what's going on? I looked at him, my son caught in her web. The locket softened its warmth, a reminder of my love for him, but also my strength. Nathan, we'll talk, but Clara has some explaining to do. I turned to her, my voice steady as stone. Tell me about the key. Her eyes flickered not with guilt, but with defiance. The house's hum grew louder, and the locket burned a fire I was ready to wield. Clara's scheme was unraveling, and I was no longer the widow in the shadows. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian of the Willow House, and I would uncover her truth before it consumed us all. The Willow House stood cloaked in twilight, its spires cutting through the mist like silent sentinels. I sat in my car a block away, the security app's feed glowing on my phone. The footage from this morning played in a loop, Clara, her auburn hair a stark contrast against the manor's pale walls, trying her ornate key in the front door. Then the back, her movements frantic as the locks refused her. The cameras I had installed after her first intrusion were my silent allies, their lenses capturing every twitch of her calculated facade. The locket around my neck pulsed its warmth, a steady beacon urging me to trust the instincts that had awakened within me. I was Eleanor Voss, not the grieving widow Clara thought she could manipulate, and I was ready to turn her game against her. The journal from the attic lay open on the passenger seat, its cryptic words etched in my mind. To the keeper of the willow, the house chooses its guardian. Beware those who seek the key for themselves. The ornate key Clara held wasn't just a tool to open doors. It was tied to the house's power, a force I was only beginning to understand. The mirror's vision of the woman, her eyes fierce and familiar, had whispered, "Protect," and the locket had burned in response, as if confirming my role. Clara's scheme wasn't just about money or property. She was chasing something deeper, something the house guarded, and I was determined to uncover it before she did. I rewound the footage, zooming in on Clara's key. Its engravings vines, curling like living tendrils, matched the symbols on the attic mirror and the box I'd found. It wasn't a key from Lydia's office, nor one I'd ever seen. The journal hinted at a vault hidden within the house, accessible only by that key, containing a power that bound the house to its guardian. Clara's actions, her lies, her forged offer, her bold intrusion suggested she knew more than she let on. But how had she gotten the key? And who else was involved? The locket warmed, pulling me from my thoughts. I drove to the Willow House, the night air thick with the scent of cedar and secrets. The manor loomed, its windows dark but watchful, as if it knew I was coming. I stepped inside the hum I'd felt before now, a steady pulse weaving through the walls like a heartbeat. The stained glass window in the foyer cast fractured light across the floor, painting my hands in hues of crimson and sapphire. I set the journal on the oak table, my fingers tracing its worn cover. The house was alive, and it was speaking to me, guiding me toward truths Clara thought she could steal. I called Lydia, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. "Has anyone contacted you about the Willow House since we relisted it?" Her pause was too long, her tone too careful. "No, Mrs. Voss. Just your son and his wife." I pressed further, describing the key Clara held. "That doesn't sound like ours," she said, her voice trembling. "After the break-in last month, we changed all our protocols. But there was a file missing old records about the house's previous owners." My grip tightened on the phone. "Find that file, Lydia, and check your logs for anyone who's been asking about the house." She promised to look, but her unease confirmed my suspicions. Clara's key came from somewhere or someone else. I hung up the locket, flaring hot. The house hummed louder, a melody that seemed to call me to the basement. I descended the creaking stairs, my flashlight cutting through the dark. The door I'd noted before, the one that opened at night, stood at the far end, its keyhole empty but glinting as if waiting. I touched it, and the locket burned a vision, flashing the woman from the mirror, slipping the ornate key into the lock. A door opening to a room bathed in golden light. I blinked, the vision fading, but the hum grew stronger, urging me to act. I searched the basement, my hands trembling as I moved crates and tapped walls, looking for the hidden panel I'd found before. It was still there, its vine-like symbols glowing faintly in the flashlight's beam. I pressed it, and it clicked open, revealing the compartment where I'd found the journal. But this time, something else caught my eye. A small, rusted key, ordinary compared to Clara's tucked in the corner. I picked it up, the locket pulsing in response. It wasn't the ornate key, but it felt significant, as if the house had revealed it for a reason. I climbed to the attic, drawn to the mirror. The woman's image flickered, her eyes locking on mine. She held the ornate key, her lips moving. She seeks what isn't hers. The locket burned, and I understood. Clara wasn't just after the house's deed. She was after its power, the force the journal described. I tucked the rusted key into my pocket, my resolve hardening. I wouldn't let her win. The next morning, I was back at my Ashwick home when the security app chimed. I opened it, and there was Clara, marching up to the Willow House's porch, her key in hand. She tried the front door, twisting hard, her face a mask of frustration as the new locks held firm. She moved to the back, then the side entrance, each attempt failing. The cameras caught every moment, her gestures growing frantic, her lips muttering words I couldn't hear. She called someone Nathan, I assumed, pointing at the door like a wronged tenant. The locket warmed, and the house's hum echoed in my mind, a low, defiant note. I called a locksmith, my voice calm but firm. Change every lock at the Willow House by midnight, no exceptions. He arrived within hours, his tools clinking as he worked. I stood in the foyer watching the old locks come off, each one a symbol of Clara's failed scheme. The locket pulsed, and the house seemed to sigh, its hum softening, as if approving. I called a security company next, instructing them to install additional cameras, discreet, high resolution, with night vision and motion sensors. The expense was steep, but peace of mind was worth more than gold. By dawn, the cameras were live, their feeds streaming to my phone. I sat with my coffee, the locket warm against my chest, and opened the app. Clara appeared again, as if drawn by some compulsion, her key glinting in the morning light. She tried the front door, then the back, her frustration boiling over as she kicked the frame. She called Nathan, her gestures wild, her voice inaudible, but her intent clear. She was spinning a new lie, perhaps about vandals or a mix-up. But the cameras saw the truth, and so did I. I rewound the footage, studying her key. The engravings were clearer now, vines curling into a symbol I recognized from the journal, a sigil of protection meant for the house's guardian. How had Clara gotten it? The break-in at Lydia's office was too convenient, the missing file too specific. I called Lydia again, my voice sharp. "Who accessed the Willow House records before the break-in?" she stammered. "No one, Mrs. Voss. But Clara stopped by a month ago, asking about historic properties. I thought she was just curious." Curious. The word was a lie, and the locket burned, confirming it. I drove to the Willow House, the journal, and rusted key in my bag. The manor greeted me with its hum, its shadows shifting as if welcoming me home. I climbed to the attic, the mirror waiting. The woman's image was clearer now, her face a mirror of my own, her eyes fierce. She took it, she whispered, holding the ornate key. "Find her source." The locket flared, and a memory surfaced, not mine, but vivid, a man in a dark coat handing Clara the key, his face hidden in shadow. I blinked, the vision fading, but the locket's heat urged me to act. I searched the attic, my hands trembling as I moved trunks and tapped walls. In a corner, beneath a dusty rug, I found another loose floorboard. It creaked open, revealing a small metal box, its surfaces etched with the same vine-like sigils. Inside was a photograph, faded but clear. A woman, my great-grandmother, standing on the Willow House's porch, the ornate key in her hand. A note was tucked beside it. "The key binds the guardian to the house. Trust no one who seeks it." My heart pounded. Clara hadn't just stolen a key. She'd stolen a legacy. I called Nathan, my voice steady but cold. "Meet me at the Willow House, alone." He arrived an hour later, his shoulders slumped, his eyes avoiding mine. He stepped into the foyer, glancing at the new locks, the cameras blinking in the corners. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked. His voice small, like the boy who'd once feared thunderstorms. I held up the photograph, the note, the journal. "Clara had a key to my house, Nathan. She lied to Lydia, claimed I sent her. She's not after a home. She's after something else." His face crumpled, his hands rubbing together. "She said she was helping you, Mom. She told the property manager you were overwhelmed, that you needed her to check on the renovations." The locket burned, and the house's hum grew louder, a warning. "And the bank?" I asked, my voice sharp. She answered my phone, told them she had power of attorney. "Did you know?" He looked away, his silence a confession. "She thought it would make things easier," he mumbled. "She didn't mean enough," I said, my voice cutting through his excuses. The locket flared, and the house's shadows seemed to lean closer, as if listening. "She's manipulating you, Nathan, and you let her." His eyes widened, but he didn't argue. The truth was a weight he couldn't carry, And I saw it now. He wasn't complicit, but he was weak, caught in Clara's web. I stepped closer, the journal in my hand. This house is mine, Nathan. I bought it for us, but Clara's turned it into a battlefield. Tell me where she got the key. He shook his head, his voice trembling. I don't know, Mom. She said a friend gave it to her, someone who knows old houses. A friend. The man in my vision, his face hidden. The locket burned, and the house hummed a low, angry note. I sent Nathan away, my heart heavy, but my resolve unshaken. I called a private investigator, a woman named Mara, who'd helped Gideon with a case years ago. Find out who Clara's been talking to, I said. Start with anyone connected to the Willow House's history. Mara's voice was crisp, professional. I'll dig. Old houses like that have long shadows. She didn't know the half of it. That night, I returned to the Willow House, the journal and photograph in my bag. The manor greeted me with its hum, its shadows pooling at my feet. I climbed to the attic, the mirror waiting. The woman's image was vivid now, her eyes blazing. She seeks the vault. She whispered, her hand clutching the key. Stop her! The locket burned, and a vision flashed Clara standing in the basement, the ornate key in her hand, a door opening to a room pulsing with light. I blinked, the vision fading, but the locket's heat was a call to action. I descended to the basement, the rusted key in my pocket. The door stood at the far end, its keyhole glinting. I tried the rusted key, my hands trembling. It didn't fit. But the locket flared, and the door creaked open, revealing a narrow passage. I stepped inside my flashlight, illuminating stone walls, carved with the same vine-like sigils. At the end was a door, its lock matching the ornate key. I touched it, and the locket burned a whisper, echoing, "You are the guardian." I stepped back, my heart pounding. Clara was after the vault, and she had the key, but I had the house, the locket, and a legacy I was only beginning to understand. I locked the passage, my resolve hardening. Clara thought she could steal my future, but she didn't know the power I carried or the house's determination to protect its own. I drove home, the locket warm against my chest, the journal heavy in my bag. The cameras were watching, the locks were secure, and the house was on my side. Clara's scheme was unraveling, and I was no longer the widow in the shadows. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian of the Willow House, and I would stop her before she claimed what wasn't hers. The Willow House stood like a fortress in the gathering dusk, its ivy-clad walls shimmering with a faint, unnatural glow. I stood in the foyer, the journal from the attic open on the oak table, its words a litany of warnings. The key binds the guardian to the house. Trust no one who seeks it. The locket around my neck pulsed its warmth, a steady anchor tethering me to the strength I'd only begun to claim. Clara's scheme, her stolen key, her forged offer, her lies about power of attorney had unraveled, but the truth was still a shadow lurking just beyond my reach. Tonight, I would drag it into the light. The security app on my phone chimed, pulling me from my thoughts. The feed showed Clara's car pulling into the driveway, her silhouette sharp against the twilight. She wasn't alone. A man stepped out, his face obscured by a hooded coat, his movements cautious as if he knew the house was watching. The locket flared, and a vision flashed, the same man handing Clara the ornate key, his eyes glinting with a hunger that matched hers. I blinked, the image fading, but the hum of the house grew louder, a low, defiant note that echoed my resolve. Clara wasn't just a thief. She was part of something bigger, and I was ready to face it. I'd called Nathan earlier, demanding he meet me here alone, but Clara's presence didn't surprise me. She was the architect of this betrayal, and Nathan, my son, was her unwitting pawn. The locket burned, urging me to act, but I waited, my breath steady, my senses sharp. The cameras blinked in the corners, their lenses my silent allies recording every move. I'd changed the locks, fortified the house, hired Mara, the private investigator, to dig into Clara's connections. But the real battle was here now in the heart of the Willow House. The front door rattled Clara's key, scraping against the new lock. She cursed, her voice muffled but sharp, and tried again. The man beside her whispered something, his hand on her arm, urging her to stop. I opened the door, the locket's heat fueling my voice. "Looking for something, Clara." Her eyes widened, her smile faltering, but she recovered quickly, her tone dripping with false concern. "Eleanor, we were worried about you. Nathan said you wanted to talk about the house." I stepped aside, gesturing for them to enter. "Come in. Let's talk." Clara hesitated, her gaze darting to the man who stayed silent, his face still shadowed. Nathan wasn't with her, and his absence spoke louder than words. I led them to the living room, the fireplace casting flickering shadows across the carved mantel. The house hummed its melody, a warning, as if it sensed the danger in their presence. I sat in an armchair, the journal in my lap, the rusted key from the basement in my pocket. The locket pulsed, and I felt the woman from the mirror watching, her eyes fierce in my mind. "Clara," I said, my voice steady. "How did you get the key?" Her smile tightened, her fingers clutching her purse. "What key? Eleanor?" "I don't know what you're talking about." The lie was thin, and the house's hum grew sharper, as if it were scoffing. I held up my phone. The security footage paused on her image, the ornate key glinting in her hand. This key, the one you tried to use yesterday, the one you shouldn't have. Her face paled, but her eyes flickered with defiance. The man shifted his hood, slipping slightly, revealing a sharp jaw and eyes that gleamed unnaturally like embers in the dark. The locket burned, and a whisper echoed, "He knows." I kept my gaze on Clara, my voice calm but unyielding. "You lied to Lydia, said I sent you to check on the renovations. You answered my phone, told the bank you had power of attorney. You forged an offer to pressure me into funding your dream." Why? Clara's mask slipped, her lips parting in a silent gasp. "Eleanor, you're twisting this." I was trying to help to secure a home for Lila, for all of us. Her voice was smooth, but the house's hum grew louder, its shadows pooling at her feet as if marking her lies. The man stepped forward, his voice low, almost hypnotic. "Mrs. Voss, there's been a misunderstanding. Clara's just eager to start fresh. This house, it's perfect for your family." I studied him, the locket flaring hot. His eyes held a glint I'd seen in my vision, a hunger that matched Clara's. "And you are?" I asked, my tone sharp. He smiled, too smooth, too practiced. "A friend. I help with historic properties, advise on their value." The locket burned, and the house's hum turned angry, a low growl that vibrated through the floor. I stood, the journal in my hand, my voice cutting through his charm. "You gave her the key, didn't you? The one that doesn't belong to you." His smile faltered, and Clara's eyes darted to him, a flicker of fear breaking through her facade. The locket pulsed, and a vision flashed, the man standing in the basement, the ornate key in his hand, a door opening to a room pulsing with golden light. I blinked, the image fading, but the truth was clear. "You're not here for the house," I said, my voice steady as stone. "You're here for what's inside it. The vault." Clara's gasp was audible, her hand clutching her purse tighter. The man's eyes narrowed, his voice low. "You don't know what you're talking about, Mrs. Voss." But the house knew. Its hum grew louder, the shadows shifting, curling like vines around their feet. I opened the journal, reading aloud. "The key binds the guardian to the house. Beware those who seek it for themselves. You're not family, Clara. You're a thief! Her face twisted, the sweetness gone replaced by a cold, calculating edge. You're selfish, Eleanor. You bought this house to control us, to dangle it over our heads. I was trying to protect our future, Lila's future. Her words were venom, but they crumbled against the truth. The locket flared, and the house's shadows seemed to lean closer, as if ready to strike. I stepped forward, my voice firm. You stole a key, lied to the bank, and manipulated Nathan. That's not protection. That's fraud. The man moved his hand, reaching for something in his coat, but the house reacted first. The chandelier above swayed, its crystals clinking, and a gust of wind impossible in the sealed room swept through knocking papers from the table. Clara flinched, her eyes wide, and the man froze, his hand dropping. The locket burned, and I felt the woman from the mirror beside me, her presence a fire in my veins. Tell me about the key. I said, my voice a command, not a question. Clara's defiance cracked, her voice trembling. It was his idea, she said, pointing at the man. He said the house held something valuable, something worth more than money. He gave me the key, said it would open the vault. The man's eyes flashed a warning, but she pressed on, her words tumbling out. My uncle, he's an accountant. He said if you signed the house over as an early inheritance, we'd save on taxes, protect it from nursing home costs. It was supposed to be simple. Simple. The word was a blade cutting through the last of my illusions. The locket flared, and the house's hum turned into a roar, the shadows swirling like a storm. I looked at the man, my voice cold. Who are you, and how do you know about the vault? He smiled, but it was strained, his eyes flickering with that unnatural glint. I'm a collector, Mrs. Voss. Old houses like this, they hold secrets, power. The key's just the beginning. The locket burned, and a vision flashed, the man standing in the basement, the ornate key unlocking a door, a light spilling out, consuming him. I blinked, my heart pounding. You're not getting the key, I said, my voice steady. Or the vault. Clara's face twisted, her voice sharp. You don't deserve this house, Eleanor. You're alone, clinging to memories. We're a family. We have a right to it. The house's hum peaked, a melody that shook the walls, and the locket flared, its heat, a fire I could wield. Family doesn't steal, I said, my voice cutting through her lies. Family doesn't lie. You're not here for Lila. You're here for power. You don't understand. The shadows surged, curling around Clara's ankles, and she stumbled back, her eyes wide with fear. The man grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, but the house resisted, the door slamming shut before they could reach it. I stepped forward, the journal in one hand, the rusted key in the other. The house chose me. I said, my voice echoing with a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Not you. The locket burned, and the woman from the mirror appeared in my mind, her eyes lighting, her voice clear. You are the guardian. The man's face paled, his eyes flickering, and for a moment I swore I saw something else in them. A shadow not human, retreating from the light. Clara's voice broke the silence, trembling but defiant. You can't keep us out forever, Eleanor. We'll find a way. The house's hum softened as if laughing, and the door creaked open, releasing them. They fled, the man's coat flapping like wings, Clara's face a mask of fear and fury. I stood in the foyer, the locket warm, the journal heavy in my hand. The house was silent now, its shadows still as if satisfied. I called Nathan, my voice steady but heavy with sorrow. He answered, his tone small, childlike. Mom, I'm sorry. Clara said it was for our family. I closed my eyes, the locket softening, a reminder of my love for him. Nathan, I bought this house for us, but Clara's turned it into a lie. Come to the house tomorrow. Alone. He agreed, his voice breaking, and I hung up, my heart aching, but my resolve unshaken. I returned to the attic, the mirror waiting. The woman's image was vivid now, her face my own, her eyes fierce with pride. "You've seen her truth," she whispered, holding the ornate key. "Guard the vault." The locket pulsed, and I nodded, a vow forming in my heart. Clara's scheme was exposed, but the man, her collector, was still a shadow, a threat I hadn't yet named. The house hummed its melody, a promise it would protect me as I protected it. I descended to the basement, the rusted key in my hand. The hidden passage was still there, its stone walls carved with sigils that glowed faintly. I stood before the vault's door, its lock matching the ornate key Clara held. I didn't have it yet, but the locket burned, and the house whispered, "You are enough." I locked the passage, my fingers steady, my heart alight with purpose. Clara thought she could claim the house's power, but she didn't know the strength I carried or the legacy I was born to wield. I stepped into the foyer, the stained glass window casting rainbows across my face. The journal lay open, its words a guide. The house chooses its guardian. I was that guardian, and no one, not Clara, not her shadowy ally, would take that from me. The locket pulsed, and the house hummed a melody of triumph. The truth was revealed, and I was ready for the battle ahead. The willow house stood bathed in the golden light of dawn, its ivy-clad walls shimmering as if exhaling a sigh of relief. I stood in the foyer, the journal from the attic open on the oak table, its words a testament to my role. The house chooses its guardian. The locket around my neck pulsed its warmth, a steady reminder of the strength I had claimed in confronting Clara and her shadowy ally last night. The house's hum, once a warning, now felt like a melody of triumph, weaving through the walls as if celebrating my resolve. Clara's scheme, her stolen key, her lies, her hunger for the vault's power lay exposed. But the battle wasn't over. Today, I would draw lines in the sand, not just for the house, but for myself. I'd sent Clara and her collector fleeing into the night, the house itself thwarting their escape, until I'd spoken my truth. Nathan's absence during the confrontation weighed heavy on my heart, a reminder that my son, though not the architect of this betrayal, had been complicit in his silence. The locket softened its warmth, tinged with sorrow, but I pushed the ache aside. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian of the Willow House, and I would not let love blind me to the need for boundaries. My phone buzzed, Nathan's name lighting up the screen. I hesitated, the locket pulsing, gently urging me to listen but not yield. "Mom." His voice cracked through the line, small and shaken like the boy who'd once clung to me during storms. "I'm sorry. Clara said it was for Lila, for our family." "I didn't know." His words faltered, and I closed my eyes, the locket's warmth steadying me. "Come to the house, Nathan." I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "Alone. We need to talk." I hung up my gaze, drifting to the stained glass window, its colors dancing across the floor like fragments of a dream. The journal lay open, its pages, detailing the Voss women who'd guarded the house before me, their strength tied to the ornate key Clara sought. The vault, hidden in the basement, held a power I didn't yet fully understand, a light, the journal called it, that bound the house to its guardian. Clara's pursuit of it wasn't just greed. It was a violation of a legacy I was born to protect. The locket flared, and a whisper echoed, "You are enough." I nodded, a vow forming in my heart. The house had chosen me, and I would honor that choice. Nathan arrived an hour later, his shoulders slumped, his eyes avoiding mine as he stepped into the foyer. The house's hum softened, as if offering him grace, but the locket remained warm, a reminder of my duty. He sat across from me in the living room, the fireplace casting shadows across his face. Mom, I didn't know Clara would go that far, he said, his voice breaking. She said she was helping you, that you were overwhelmed. I thought. He trailed off, rubbing his hands together, a gesture so like Gideon's it stung. I held up the journal, its pages open to the warning about the key. Clara didn't just lie, Nathan. She stole a key, forged documents, pretended to have power of attorney. She wasn't helping me. She was helping herself. His face crumpled, but he didn't argue. The locket pulsed, and I saw the truth in his eyes, guilt, not surprise. He'd known something was wrong, but hadn't stopped her. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice steady but heavy with sorrow. He looked away, his voice small. She said it was for Lila's future, that you'd want us to have the house. I believed her. The locket softened its warmth, a reminder of my love for him, but also my strength. Nathan, I said, my voice firm. I bought this house for us, for you, Clara, Lila. But it's mine, and so are my decisions. You let her manipulate you, and that hurt me more than her lies. His eyes met mine, glistening with tears. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean. I raised a hand, silencing him. I love you, Nathan, but love doesn't mean surrender. You and Clara need to find a home you can afford without my money or my legacy. The words were heavy, but they felt right, like a lock clicking into place. The house's hum grew louder, a melody of approval, and the locket flared its warmth, a fire I could wield. Nathan nodded, his shoulders sagging further. What about Lila? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. The locket softened, and I saw her face, my granddaughter, innocent in this mess. Lila will always have a place with me, I said, my voice softening, but not at the cost of my peace. He stood, his eyes searching mine, but he didn't argue. As he left, the house's hum faded, as if granting him a quiet exit. Clara called before noon, her name flashing on my phone like a warning. The locket flared, and I answered, my voice calm but unyielding. Eleanor, she began, her tone forced sweet as poisoned honey. There's been a misunderstanding. I only wanted what's best for our family. The house's hum returned sharp and mocking, as if it could hear her lies. I cut her off, my voice steady as stone. No, Clara. You stole a key, lied to the bank, and tried to claim a power that isn't yours. That's not a misunderstanding. That's betrayal. Her tone shifted, the sweetness gone, replaced by a cold edge. You're twisting this, Eleanor. You bought that house to control us, to keep us in your shadow. I was trying to secure a future for Lila. The locket burned, and the house's shadows seemed to swirl as if ready to strike. You don't get to hide behind Lila, I said, my voice a blade. You sought the vault, Clara. You and your collector. Tell me who he is. Silence stretched across the line, then a sharp scoff. You're paranoid, she said, but her voice trembled, betraying her. The house is just a house, Eleanor. You're making this bigger than it is. The locket flared, and a vision flashed, Clara standing in a dimly lit room, the collector beside her, his eyes glowing with that unnatural light, the ornate key in her hand. I blinked, the image fading, but the truth was clear. The house chose me, Clara. I said, my voice echoing with a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Not you, and it knows your lies. The line went silent, then ended with a sharp click. The locket softened, and the house's hum settled as if satisfied. I stood in the foyer, the journal in my hand, the rusted key in my pocket. Clara's mask had fallen, and I saw her now not as family, but as a thief chasing a power she couldn't comprehend. The house had exposed her, and I would protect it no matter the cost. I called Mara, the private investigator, my voice steady. Find out who the man with Clara is. He's connected to the Willow House's history. Mara's tone was crisp, professional. I've got a lead. A name keeps coming up: Victor Crane, an antiques dealer with a reputation for chasing old legends. He's been asking about the house for years. The locket flared, and I nodded. Dig deeper, I said, and watch Clara. Mara agreed, and I hung up the house's hum, a steady companion. I walked through the manor, my fingers trailing the banister, the locket warm against my chest. The renovations were complete, gleaming countertops, sanded floors, a chandelier that sparkled like a constellation. I'd poured Gideon's insurance money into this place, not just to secure a future, but to reclaim one for myself. The house wasn't just a home. It was a sanctuary, a legacy, and I was its guardian. The locket pulsed, and a whisper echoed. You are home. I returned to the attic, drawn to the mirror. The woman's image was vivid now, her face my own, her eyes blazing with pride. You've seen her truth, she whispered, holding the ornate key. Claim your own. The locket flared, and a vision flashed, the basement door, the vault beyond, pulsing with golden light. I blinked, my heart racing. The house was guiding me not just to protect it, but to embrace who I was, a Voss, a guardian, a woman who'd survived loss and betrayal to find her strength. I began to rebuild my life in the Willow House, not as a widow waiting for others to define her, but as a woman carving her own path. I invited neighbors for coffee, their laughter filling the rooms I'd once imagined for Clara and Nathan. Mrs. Harrow, the widow across the street, brought stories of her book club, her eyes warm with kindness. The young couple next door, their children carrying my groceries, filled the garden with chatter. The retired teacher, Mr. Ellis, arrived with pies, his smile brightening the grayest days. These people, once strangers, offered a warmth. Clara never had a community built on honesty, not obligation. Each day, the house felt more like mine, its hum a melody of belonging. I planted roses in the garden, their petals vibrant against the ivy. I joined the book club, my voice growing stronger with each meeting. I hung photographs in the foyer, not just of Gideon and Nathan, but of myself smiling alive. The locket pulsed, and the house seemed to hum in approval, its shadows soft, no longer restless. Nathan called often, his voice cautious, pleading. Mom, can we work this out? He asked, his tone childlike, as if hoping for forgiveness to erase his mistakes. The locket softened, but I held firm. Nathan, I love you, but I'm done sacrificing my peace for your choices. You and Clara need to stand on your own. His silence was heavy, but I didn't waver. The house's hum steadied me, a reminder that boundaries weren't betrayal, they were survival. Clara called, once her voice sharp, accusing. You're pushing us away, Eleanor. Lila needs her grandmother. The locket flared, and the house's hum turned cold as if rejecting her words. Lila will always have me, I said, my voice steady. But you don't get to use her to manipulate me. She hung up her silence louder than her accusations. The locket softened, and I felt a weight lift, as if the house itself were releasing me from her grasp. I visited Lila once a month, her laughter a balm to my heart. I brought her to the Willow House, letting her run through the garden, her small hands clutching flowers I'd planted. Nathan watched from a distance, his eyes heavy with regret, but he didn't push. Clara remained distant, her smile, never reaching her eyes, a reminder of the lessons I had learned. The locket pulsed, and I knew love didn't require surrender. It required truth. One evening, I stood in the basement, the rusted key in my hand. The hidden passage was still there, its sigils glowing faintly. I hadn't found the ornate key, but I didn't need it, not yet. The house had chosen me, and its power was mine to guard. I locked the passage, the locket warm, the hum, a melody of peace. I climbed to the foyer, the stained glass window casting rainbows across my face. The journal lay open, its words a promise. The house chooses its guardian. I hosted my first dinner in the Willow House 6 months later. The long dining table lined with neighbors who'd become friends. Mrs. Harrow's laughter filled the room. Mr. Ellis's stories sparked debates, and the young couple's children darted through the halls, their joy echoing off the walls. The house hummed its melody soft as if content. The locket pulsed a reminder of my journey from grief to strength, from betrayal to freedom. As I cleared the dishes, I thought of Clara's scheme, the collector's shadow, the vault's mystery. They were threats, but they no longer defined me. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian of the Willow House, and I'd built a life not on obligation, but on truth. The house's hum was a song. Now its shadows a dance, and the locket was warm a fire I carried within. I was home, and I was free. The Willow House stood bathed in the soft glow of a September evening, its ivy-clad walls shimmering as if whispering their approval. I sat in the foyer, the oak table before me, holding the journal from the attic, its pages worn but alive with the legacy of the Voss women. The locket around my neck pulsed gently, its warmth a quiet companion, no longer a flare of urgency, but a steady ember of strength. The house's hum, once a warning, had softened into a melody of peace weaving through the walls like a lullaby. I was Eleanor Voss, guardian of this place, and I had faced betrayal, uncovered secrets, and reclaimed my freedom. Now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt the weight of my journey settle into something new, clarity, purpose, a life rebuilt on my terms. 6 months had passed since I confronted Clara and her shadowy ally, the collector named Victor Crane. His name lingered like a half-remembered dream, a thread Mara, my private investigator, was still unraveling. She'd found traces of him, an antiques dealer with a penchant for chasing legends, his inquiries about the Willow House stretching back decades. The ornate key he'd given Clara, the one meant to unlock the vault in the basement, remained missing, but I wasn't afraid. The house had chosen me, and its power, whatever it was, felt safe in my hands. The locket pulsed, and a whisper echoed, faint but clear, "You are enough." I smiled the words a balm to the wounds of betrayal. I flipped through the journal, its pages, a map of my transformation, from the widow drowning in grief to the guardian who'd faced down lies I'd learned, lessons Clara and Nathan could never take from me. The first was vigilance. Trust was a gift, not a given, and even family could wield it like a weapon. Clara's scheme, her stolen key, her forged documents, her hunger for the vault's power had taught me to listen to the instincts I'd once dismissed. The locket had been my guide, its warmth a spark of the Voss legacy, a lineage of women who saw truths in the shadows. Gideon had believed in that gift, and now so did I. The second lesson was self-worth. I'd bought the Willow House to give Nathan, Clara, and Lila a future, but I'd nearly lost myself in the giving. Clara's manipulation, Nathan's silence had shown me that love didn't mean surrender. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was survival. The house's hum had steadied me through those choices, its shadows shifting in approval as I reclaimed my voice. I'd told Nathan and Clara they needed to stand on their own, and though the words had hurt, they'd freed me. The locket pulsed, and I felt Gideon's smile in its warmth as if he were proud. The third lesson was connection, not the kind bound by blood, but the kind forged in honesty. My neighbors, once strangers, had become my family. Mrs. Harrow's laughter filled my dinners, Mr. Ellis's stories sparked debates, and the young couple's children brought life to the garden I'd planted. They didn't ask for my money or my legacy. They offered their time, their kindness, their presence. The Willow House, once meant for Nathan's family, was now a haven for this new community, its rooms alive with voices that didn't carry lies. The house hummed its melody soft, as if content with the life I'd built within its walls. I stood my fingers tracing the stained glass window, its colors dancing across my skin like a blessing. The journal lay open, its final entry, a vow I had written last night. I am the guardian, not just of the house, but of myself. The vault in the basement remained locked, its secret safe for now. I hadn't found the ornate key, but I didn't need it, not yet. The house trusted me, and I trusted it. The locket pulsed, and a vision flickered the woman from the mirror, her eyes my own nodding in approval. "You've learned," she whispered, her voice fading into the house's hum. I thought of Nathan, his calls less frequent now, his voice heavy with regret. I'd seen him last week at a park with Lila, her laughter a light that pierced my heart. "Grandma, can I visit your big house?" She'd asked, her eyes wide. I'd smiled, the locket warm. "Anytime, sweetheart." Nathan had watched, his silence heavy but respectful. He was learning too, learning to live without Clara's script, to rebuild without my money. Clara had faded into the background, her calls rare, her smile absent. Mara's last report hinted she'd left Ashwick Victor Crane's shadow trailing her, but I didn't dwell on it. The house would warn me if they returned. I walked to the garden, the roses I had planted blooming vibrant against the ivy. The air was cool, the stars bright above the willow house's spires. I sat on a bench, the locket soft against my chest, and opened my journal to a blank page. I wrote my hand steady. "To those who come after me, guard your heart, but don't lock it away. Trust your instincts, for they are your strength. The house chooses its guardian, but you choose your life." The words felt like a legacy, not just for the Voss women, but for anyone who'd faced betrayal and found their way through. The house's hum was a song now, its shadows dancing in the moonlight. I thought of the vault, its golden light, a mystery I'd one day unravel. For now, it was enough to know I was its keeper, chosen not by chance, but by fate. The locket pulsed, and I felt the woman from the mirror beside me, her presence, a fire that warmed rather than burned. "I'm home," I whispered, and the house seemed to agree, its hum, a melody of peace. I invited my neighbors for dinner the next week, the long dining table groaning with food, Mrs. Harrow's casserole, Mr. Ellis's pie, my own roasted vegetables from the garden. Laughter filled the air, and Lila, visiting for the evening, chased the neighbors' children through the halls, their joy echoing off the walls. Nathan sat quietly, his smile tentative but genuine, a step toward healing. The house hummed its melody, a celebration, and the locket pulsed, a reminder of the journey that had brought me here. As I cleared the dishes, Mrs. Harrow touched my arm, her eyes warm. "You've made this house a home, Eleanor. Not just for you, but for all of us." I smiled, the locket soft, and nodded. The Willow House was more than a home. It was a sanctuary, a testament to the strength I'd found within myself. Clara's betrayal, Nathan's weakness, the collector's shadow, they were part of my story, but they didn't define it. I did. I stood in the foyer, the stained glass window casting rainbows across my face. The journal lay closed, its secrets safe, its lessons learned. I thought of those who might hear my story, who might face their own betrayals, their own battles. "Guard your worth," I whispered as if to them. "Trust your fire. It's not selfish, it's survival." The locket pulsed, and the house hummed a final note of agreement. I stepped onto the porch, the night air cool, the stars a canvas above. The Willow House stood behind me, its spires tall, its secrets mine to keep. I was Eleanor Voss, widow, guardian woman reclaimed. The locket was warm, the hum was soft, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. The battle was won not with anger, but with truth. I was free, and I was home.